Yesterday afternoon at 2:51 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, the ground at the summit of Kilauea started leaking lava again. Within minutes, the U.S. Geological Survey did something it does not do casually. It raised the volcano's alert level from advisory to watch, and it raised the Aviation Color Code from yellow to orange. That is not a routine update. That is scientists telling the world in the clearest language they have that a volcano is doing something serious right now and everyone should be paying attention. Here are the numbers first, because numbers tell you how serious this actually is. This is episode 51 of an eruption that has now been running on and off since December 23rd, 2024. That means Kilauea has been actively erupting in cycles for more than 18 months straight. The episode before this one, episode 50, ended abruptly on June 27th after 7 hours of continuous lava fountaining from the north vent. And the volcano did not go quiet after that. It went back into what scientists call a charging phase, building pressure underground for the next blast. That blast started yesterday. But here's the part of this story that almost no one covers, and it's the part that actually explains why this particular alert matters. Scientists have been trying to predict exactly when episode 51 would begin for almost 2 weeks, and the volcano kept refusing to cooperate. The forecast window got pushed back 4 separate times. First it was July 7th to 14th, then it slid to July 11th to 15th, then it tightened to July 13th to 15th, then it moved again to July 14th to 16th. Every single time scientists thought they had it figured out, the mountain shifted the goalposts. That is not a minor detail. That is the volcano behaving in a way that is actively testing the limits of how well we can forecast it, in real time, on camera, with instruments running the entire time. If you want to understand exactly what's happening inside one of the most watched volcanoes on Earth as it happens, this is the channel for that. I'm the host here at Today Latest Analysis, and we cover events like this the moment the data comes in, not days later. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next update, because with Kilauea, the next update could come at any hour. Now let's start from the beginning, because to understand why this eruption keeps stopping and starting, you need to understand what's happening underneath the surface. Kilauea sits on top of a shallow magma reservoir, a pocket of molten rock a couple of miles beneath the summit. Picture it like a balloon slowly being filled with air. As magma pushes up from deep inside the earth and collects in that reservoir, the ground above it physically rises. Scientists measure this rise using an instrument called a tilt meter, which is sensitive enough to detect ground movement measured in millionths of a radian, a unit so small it would be invisible to a person standing on the surface. When the reservoir is filling up, the ground inflates. When magma drains out of the reservoir and erupts at the surface, the ground deflates, like letting air out of that same balloon. This is exactly the cycle that has been playing out for the past several weeks. After episode 50 ended in late June, the summit switched from deflating to inflating, which told scientists a new episode was being loaded. But here is where it gets interesting. Inflation is not a smooth, one-direction process. As the pressure builds, it doesn't just climb steadily, it stutters. There are pauses, and there are moments where the ground actually deflates slightly before resuming its climb. Every time that happened over the past 2 weeks, it delayed the eruption and pushed the forecast window back again. On the Wekahuna tilt meter, the main instrument tracking this at the summit, recovery reached about 12.1 microradians. In the days leading up to yesterday, an increase of roughly 2 microradians in just 1 day before the eruption began. For comparison, episode 50 released about 15.3 microradians of deflation when it happened. That gives scientists a rough sense of how much pressure needs to build before the mountain lets go again. Yesterday, that pressure finally reached its breaking point. At 2:51 p.m., lava began overflowing from the north vent inside Halemaumau crater, the same vent responsible for most of this eruption's activity since December 2024. This is what's called precursory activity, the early leaking that typically comes before the main event, a full lava fountaining episode. HVO's official notice described low-level winds out of the northeast, with variable winds higher up, both of which matter, because they determine which direction gas and ash will drift. Now, here's the second layer of this story, the part that explains why the alert level actually changed and not just the description of the activity. Raising the alert from advisory to watch is a specific, defined signal in USGS's system. Advisory means a volcano is exhibiting signs of unrest above known background levels. Watch means the volcano is exhibiting heightened unrest with an increased potential of eruption, or an eruption is already underway with limited hazard to people. Combined with the Aviation Color Code going from yellow to orange, this is USGS's way of formally telling the aviation industry, park officials, and the public that Kilauea has crossed a threshold from simmering to actively erupting in real time. To understand why this particular eruption sequence is scientifically remarkable, you need to understand what makes it different from a typical volcanic event. Most people picture a volcano as something that either erupts or doesn't. Kilauea has been doing something stranger since December 2024. It has been erupting in discrete individual episodes, each one usually lasting under 12 hours, separated by pauses that can stretch anywhere from a few days to more than 3 weeks. Scientists have now numbered these episodes past 50. That means this single ongoing eruption sequence has already produced more individual fountaining events than most volcanoes on Earth see in decades. Each episode drains a portion of the shallow magma reservoir, the ground deflates, and then the slow refill begins again, setting up the next episode. During episode 50, that lava fountaining lasted 7 hours before it ended abruptly, a word HVO used specifically because these episodes don't always taper off gradually. Sometimes the fountaining just stops, almost like a tap being shut off, which tells scientists something about how the plumbing system beneath the summit is behaving. The sulfur dioxide emission rate coming off the summit has been running in a range of 1,000 to 5,000 tons per day, even during quiet periods between episodes, which gives you a sense of just how much gas is constantly moving through the system even when no lava is visible at the surface. There's a specific hazard tied to all of this that doesn't get enough attention, and it's not the lava itself. Around the crater rim of Halemaumau, the ground is covered in a layer of tephra, fragmented volcanic rock, and ash from repeated eruptions. That tephra layer is unstable. It is prone to cracking, slumping, and small landslides. And when those landslides happen, they can expose hot, sometimes still molten material underneath a surface that looks solid and cool. This is exactly why the caldera rim area has been closed to the public since 2007, nearly 2 decades before this current eruption sequence even began. It is not just lava fountains that make this location dangerous, it's the ground itself, quietly hiding heat beneath a crust that looks stable until it isn't. During episode 50's aftermath, tephra fall was mostly restricted to the closed area of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, but a light fall of Pele's hair, thin strands of volcanic glass formed when lava splashes and cools into fibers, was reported all the way in the town of Pahala in the Kau district. Pele's hair looks almost beautiful, delicate glass threads scattered across yards and rooftops. But it is sharp enough to cause skin and eye irritation, and it's a reminder that even communities well outside the closed park boundary can feel the effects of what's happening at the summit. It's worth pausing here to place this eruption sequence in its proper historical context, because Kilauea has done dramatic things before, and comparing them tells you something important. In 2018, Kilauea produced a very different kind of eruption, one that opened massive fissures down in the lower Puna district, destroyed hundreds of homes, and dramatically reshaped the coastline as lava poured into the ocean. That event lasted months and fundamentally altered where people could safely live on that part of the island. The eruption sequence happening right now since December 2024 is different in character. It has been confined almost entirely to the summit caldera, inside Halemaumau crater, within the boundaries of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. That containment is the single biggest reason this eruption, despite now stretching past 50 episodes, has not required the kind of large-scale evacuations that 2018 forced on Puna communities. This naturally raises the question everyone watching a headline like this one is thinking. Is this the sign of something bigger building underneath Kilauea, or even underneath the broader Hawaiian volcanic system? Here's the honest, direct answer. Nothing in the current data suggests that. This eruption sequence, even at episode 51, remains consistent with a pattern of summit lava fountaining that scientists have watched closely for over a year and a half. There is no evidence of unusual deep magma supply increases, no evidence of activity migrating toward populated areas outside the park, and no signal suggesting this is building toward the kind of rift zone event that happened in 2018. What's happening is closer to a well-documented, closely monitored eruption cycle continuing to do what it has done more than 50 times already, just with each individual episode still carrying real, immediate hazards for anyone near the crater rim. That distinction matters because it separates genuine risk from internet-driven panic. Every time Kilauea makes headlines, a wave of speculation follows online, some of it suggesting the entire island is at risk, or that this is somehow connected to broader seismic activity across the Pacific. The data doesn't support that. Kilauea's hazards right now are specific and geographically contained: tephra fall, VOG, which is volcanic smog, formed from sulfur dioxide reacting with the atmosphere, and the physical danger of unstable ground right at the crater's edge. These are serious hazards if you're close to the summit or downwind of it. They are not hazards that threaten the island as a whole or extend meaningfully beyond established closure zones and VOG advisory areas. So here is what actually matters if you live on the Big Island, or if you're planning to visit Hawaii Volcanoes National Park in the coming days. The 6+ mile radius closure around the caldera rim has been in place since 2007, and it remains firmly in place through this new episode. If you're anywhere near the park, check the current VOG forecast before planning outdoor activity, especially if you have asthma, other respiratory conditions, or you're traveling with young children or elderly family members, since sulfur dioxide levels can spike quickly depending on wind direction. HVO updates its notices multiple times per day during active episodes, and Hawaii County Civil Defense pushes real-time closures and safety information specific to the park and surrounding communities. If you're a photographer or a content creator hoping to catch fountaining footage, do it from designated viewing areas only. The instability of that crater rim ground is not theoretical. It is exactly why the area has stayed closed for going on 20 years. There's another piece of this story worth understanding, because it explains why HVO's monitoring network matters just as much as the eruption itself. In the weeks before this episode began, HVO noted that its instrument network was still recovering from a stretch of power and storm-related outages. Several summit stations, including one of the tilt meters used to track deformation across the deep tephra field southwest of the caldera, remained offline while crews worked to restore access. Think about what that actually means in practice. Scientists trying to forecast one of the most closely watched volcanoes on Earth were doing it with gaps in their own sensor coverage, patching together a picture of what the mountain was doing from the instruments that were still working. That is part of why the forecast window for episode 51 kept sliding. It wasn't only that the volcano was behaving unpredictably, it was that the tools used to predict it were themselves working with reduced visibility during a critical stretch. That combination, a genuinely complex volcanic system paired with a temporarily incomplete sensor network, is exactly the kind of situation that makes eruption forecasting one of the hardest problems in all of Earth science, even at a volcano as intensely studied as this one. It's also worth understanding who is actually watching this eruption unfold in real time, because it isn't just professional scientists. HVO maintains a network of public webcams pointed directly at the vents inside Halemaumau, and during episode 50, overnight footage showed a strong, steady glow from the north vent and a more variable glow from the south vent. Visible proof that even during quiet periods between fountaining episodes, the system beneath the crater never fully goes cold. That glow is essentially a visible signature of the same magma reservoir that the tilt meters are tracking underground, molten rock sitting close enough to the surface to radiate light through the vents even when nothing is actively erupting. It's one of the reasons this eruption sequence has become such a widely followed event online. People can literally watch the mountain breathe in real time from anywhere in the world, refreshing the same webcam feeds that HVO's own scientists use for their daily updates. Kilauea has been doing this, in one form or another, for a very long time. Long before HVO had tilt meters measuring microradians, long before satellites tracked sulfur dioxide plumes from orbit, this mountain was rising and falling, filling and emptying, on a rhythm shaped entirely by pressure, building somewhere deep beneath the Big Island. What's different now isn't the volcano, it's how closely we're able to watch it happen. Every stutter in that tilt meter, every ton of sulfur dioxide, every hour of fountaining is being recorded in a level of detail that simply didn't exist for any of Kilauea's past eruptions. Episode 51 began yesterday afternoon. Based on the pattern of the 50 episodes before it, it will likely last somewhere under 12 hours. And then the mountain will go quiet again, start refilling, and the entire cycle will begin building toward episode 52. I'll have a full follow-up the moment HVO confirms this episode has ended and shares data on how it compares to the ones before it. If you want to actually understand what's happening at Kilauea, instead of just seeing our dramatic lava photos with no context, that's exactly what we do here every single time this volcano moves. Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever been to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, or if you're watching this because you live on the island right now. Subscribe so you don't miss episode 52 when it comes. Share this with anyone you know planning a trip to the Big Island in the next few weeks, and I'll see you in the next update.